Are you considering divorce? Are you dealing with it now? Are you on the other side and not sure what comes next? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show with your host, Lisa C. Decker.
Hello, I'm Lisa Decker, and I am your host today of the Divorce Do's and Don'ts Show, and we are so happy to have you here. I'm a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst and a real estate collaboration specialist in divorce, as well as the CEO and founder of Divorce Money Matters and Divorcetown USA, the sponsor of this show. We are delighted to have you here today because we have a special guest who's going to give you some really great information. You know, one of the most common financial issues that we see in divorce is when a spouse who has never typically handled or understood his or her investments and savings is suddenly awarded their share of the marital equity. And they don't know, what should I do with the retirement or the savings account? How much should be invested? And where? These are big questions to ask, and they should be asked because you want to make sure that what you receive in your settlement goes as far as possible for you into the future. Well, our guest today is going to help answer these questions and more. We'd like to welcome to our show today, Divorcetown USA financial expert, Tammy Gruen. She is a financial expert advisor with Financial Consultants Group, a registered investment advisor firm located in the greater metro Atlanta area. Tammy is also a certified divorce financial analyst and specializes in working with clients going through major life transitions, whether it be divorce, loss of a loved one, a significant career change, and maybe an early retirement. So what makes Tammy unique and why we invited her here today is her focus on sustainable investing. And we're going to ask her to tell us more about that today. So Tammy, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So nice to have you here. So why don't we start off with explaining to our audience, what is sustainable investing? It's a new buzzword and a lot of people aren't really sure what it means.
Sure. So according to Harvard Business School, sustainable investing is a range of practices in which investors aim to achieve financial returns while promoting long-term environmental or social value. And that's just a long way of saying that, sustainable investing really just combines traditional investing with screens around ESG, environmental, social, and governance factors. So it's a way for investors to evaluate a firm, not just on their short-term returns, but also on their long-term impact on society.
Oh, I love that. I love that. In this world that we live in now, climate change is real. We can see it happening all over the world. And so if people can make an investment and know that they're also helping to sustain the planet, I'm all for that. This really speaks to me. So sustainable investing is referred to by different names, and that often creates confusion for investors. How would you simplify this for those that aren't familiar with the terminology?
So I like to break it down into three main types of sustainable investing. There's socially responsible investing. That refers to, a lot of times it's an elimination investing strategy where folks will say eliminate the sin stocks like tobacco, firearms, anything that would, companies that invest in practices that are negative on the environment. So that would be SRI, or socially responsible investing. There's also impact investing or thematic investing. And that's where investors choose particular things to put their money into the world. Let's say they wanted to promote green energy. They might invest in companies that offer wind energy products. So that would be impact or thematic investing. And then there's actual ESG investing, which is what most people have heard of, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And this is a way for investors to evaluate a company based on those three factors, and it gives them something to kind of compare companies to each other. And ultimately, those three factors could impact a company's business practices. And there you have the different categories of environmental, social, and governance, and the subcategories beneath each.
Now, and that's fascinating to me, how this is panning out. And I know before the show, we were talking a little bit about how there's not really set standards yet. And so it seems that ESG investing is the most popular, most known recently. Did you have some more information that you wanted to share on that? I think we may have a slide available on this.
That was the one that Marcella had up just a second ago.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, did you want to speak to that anymore, or we can just talk it? Okay.
So companies, again, with ESG in particular, companies are given ratings on their environmental, social, and governance practices. And then those ratings are used by investors in order to compare different investments. There isn't one ratings standardized system at the current time, which is one of the criticisms of ESG. There are actually two companies that offer rating standards. There's MSCI and there's Sustainalytics, and each one has their own ways of evaluating companies on different standards.
Well, I'm glad somebody's starting the ball rolling here so that it doesn't become like the word organic or natural, right? We really need to know that we can compare apples to apples.
That's right.
So that leads us to the question of why sustainable investing, other than it's good for the world, is it good for investment returns?
That's the question I get a lot from clients when we talk about sustainable investing. And we've talked a little bit about the social motivations behind sustainable investing, like making a positive impact on the world and aligning your investments to your values. But there are some practical reasons why companies that prioritize ESG factors might do a better job of mitigating their internal risks. Companies that tend to be more forward thinking, they may be ahead of the curve on issues such as climate change, which could impact their business in the future. They also tend to hold themselves to a higher standard in their business practices and their operations. So they might be less likely to make costly mistakes or end up in expensive litigation situations. So, those are all things to consider. Unfortunately, the evidence around investment returns is kind of mixed, depending on which report or which statistic you look at. Some studies are finding that stock prices for companies that have high ratings tend to be better. And then there are other reports that find there's no measurable effects or it could even be negative. So the jury's still out, but I'm sure there will be more to come in the future as investors are very interested in learning more about sustainability.
Absolutely. And I think investors have a lot more power than they realize, because just like you vote with your dollars when you spend them, you also vote with your dollars when you invest into a corporation and buy stock. And
That's right.
People are starting to really make their voices heard. So we have power here, folks, to control our futures in a better way, to make our voices known, and to make sure that we are taking care of our futures with good investing. And we need folks like Tammy who can take us through the ins and outs of this, because there's a lot to all of this. Wow. I've read that also some of the criticism of sustainable investing is that it's just a passing trend. I'm not sure I believe that. I think it's a trend setting kind of thing. But what are your thoughts?
Actually, it's interesting because, sustainable investing has been around in one form or other since as early as the 1960s. There were the first original movement was pushed by religious groups around the so-called sin stocks that I mentioned earlier, and encouraging their members to not invest in guns, tobacco, and alcohol. And then during the 70s, you see a lot of, there was some interest in not investing in same religious communities, not investing in companies that were supporting the Vietnam War. And then also again in the 80s, when you have the anti-apartheid movement, similar push for divesting in certain companies that were supporting apartheid. So it does tend to be more of originally more of a social and religious maybe origination. But today there's definitely increasing demand. And also, regulation is starting to catch up with that demand, and awareness across the U.S. and outside the U.S. that's starting to really accelerate growth in sustainable investing. I do want to mention that since a high percentage of my clients are women, and it's really women that are leading the charge in sustainable investing, and in particular, socially responsible investing. And I do want to read one statistic. There was a June survey done by the Cerulli Associates, found that 52% of women would rather invest in companies that have a positive social or environmental impact on the world versus 44% of men that felt that way. So not an insignificant statistic.
Right. Well, we tend to be the nurturers as women. Right. And,
yes,
we think about things sometimes from an emotional standpoint, and, wanting to make sure that the money that we put out there, whether it's investing or spending, is going towards companies that have good environmental policies, have good maternity and paternity leave policies, right? It goes beyond just that. That's
right.
Part of the socially responsible part of this, making sure that they are doing good in their communities, right? So what are some of the things that people want to know when they talk about socially responsible? Are they looking at an industry? Are they looking at the companies themselves when they come to you? And how far are they digging? What kind of information are people asking?
So I get a lot of questions around environmental factors and companies that are really trying to focus on making sure that they have green practices. I also get a lot of questions around, companies and their diversity and having women on boards or having diverse boards, which is uber important. I have actually have one client that's very involved in the food industry, and there are a lot of impact style investing products around specific to clean water and food security. So it really just depends on the person and what they personally might be interested in. And to your point, using their investing dollars to essentially vote, to support the social issues that they're interested in and feel is important.
And this concept is really not well known or understood. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today, because in this world, there's so much that's out of our control right now. And it feels sometimes very dark and hopeless. Like, what's the point? We just can't do anything about all this stuff coming at us, but we can. Every little action that we take causes a reaction. And if enough people get behind this and start demanding these things, this is how shifts change. This is
right.
how movements happen. And companies will have to step up to the plate, because otherwise they'll be left behind. And
that's right.
So we really are at the forefront of something big, and we do have a lot more control than we understand. So this to me is very exciting. And I'm so glad that you're here talking about this today. So one other thing that we were talking about before the show, and this is really a very important, is that I know this is supposed to be a clean discussion, but there is a dirty word related to this topic, and we should talk about it. And it's called greenwashing. Can you talk a little bit
Yes.
about that, Tammy?
So companies may say that they prioritize ESG practices, but sometimes it can be very difficult to really see if their claims are accurate. And greenwashing is really a play on the term whitewashing, which is used, to refer to misleading information or glossing over bad behavior. I did find this quote on Investopedia. Greenwashing is the act of providing the public or investors with misleading or outright false information about environmental impact of companies' products or operations. So unfortunately, sustainability has become a little bit of a marketing term, and ESG practices become a little bit of a marketing term. And so you really have to, as an investor, you may have to do a little bit more work to make sure that what you're investing is truly what they're purporting. I did have a little bit of information on a recent high-profile case that was filed by the FTC against Kohl's and Walmart and their greenwashing practices, falsely marketing dozens of rayon textiles as bamboo and eco-friendly and environmentally safe, when it turns out that they're actually rayon products. And the act of taking bamboo and making it rayon uses harsh chemicals that are very bad for the environment. And Kohl's and Walmart are going to pay $2 to $3 million each for their falsifying their claims. So you really have to be careful, not just with investing, but also with even the products and services that are out in the world and what companies are claiming, because you really have to make sure that it's backed up by actual facts and information.
And that takes time and digging. And I'm curious, how they came to that conclusion. Was it someone, I don't know if you have this information, but was it potentially a consumer that went to buy something and said, this doesn't feel like bamboo, this looks like rayon? Somebody who maybe was familiar with textiles reporting it. See, so we all can step up and step in somewhere. I've gotten into the habit, this is probably not the norm, but I read labels on everything. I used to teach a breast cancer program the first time I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And by the way, pink washing relates to this in ways also, because a lot of companies say that they support breast cancer awareness, and they are really doing the same kind of thing with breast cancer, right? We're all aware of breast cancer, no doubt by now. Where are you putting that money to help with prevention or people who have cancer or whatever the case may be? So this whole washing thing, it needs to go out with the wash. But we're making people aware. But getting back to what I was saying about calling corporations, I will read every label just about that I get. And if I see something that really doesn't sit right with me, I will call them and call them out on it. For instance, recently I got some kind of product, can't really remember what it was. I think it was yogurt, and it was the Be Good company. I think that's what it was, To Be Good or something like that. They're all about B Corp certified. They are, and I want you to speak to that also if you can. Sustainable practices. They have all this great information on their label. And so I bought it and tried it, and the product tasted pretty good. And I thought, well, I'll buy this again. And then when I used it up and I went to recycle it, it's not a recyclable material that you can usually put into recycle containers. Usually, most places you can only recycle numbers 1 and 2. The rest of them go in the trash, unless you happen to live in an area like me that has a special orange bag that you put those other things into. But most people don't have that. And so I called the company and I let them know, this just doesn't sit right with me. If you're going to do it right the whole way through. And so, they're taking that under advisement. But if enough people call, they'll find a way to do those things. And it's a simple thing. each of us can pick up the phone or send an email or whatever the case may be and let them know. And when they get enough voices saying something, they start listening. So I just want to make folks know that this isn't as big as it seems, where it's not something that you can get involved in. Small things do make a big difference.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
what can you tell us about the B Corp certification? Are you familiar with that at all?
I am a little familiar. I can't say that I know tons about it. I know that companies that are B Corp certified, it's certified by a nonprofit organization, that they're, that they're companies that, they tend to have more sustainable practices and definitely more environmental angle. I know that one company I believe is B Corp certified is the Gap. And I think it has more to do with operational practices, environmental practices, and they're making sure that they, are clean and not using products that will have off gases or, things that will drip off into the environment. But I know that B Corp can also be for service industry as well, if you're certified. And I think that has more to do with your social, how you give back to the world and social practices.
Well, I do want to say that next week's show, my daughter is going to be speaking, and she is an expert on this. So we're going to pick up that conversation with her.
Awesome. I'll be sure to watch that one.
It's, there's a lot going on in this world with these practices, and there's a lot to learn. And so, I'm excited to bring this to our audience and to our clients and to everyone who wants to start making better choices with the dollars they invest and the dollars that they spend. So, it seems like there's a lot of deception out there, as we talked about with the greenwashing and companies trying to pick up on this new trend without really doing what it takes, like becoming B Corp certified. So where can folks get more information on companies and their practices and their investment screening data?
So I found that the actual FTC website has a whole section on green guides, which I thought was very informative. That was interesting, where I found the Kohl's and Walmart case. I mentioned Sustainalytics and MCSI previously. Those are the rating companies. If you have investments and you're curious about what their sustainability ratings are, you can look those up out on their websites. I find that one of the easier places to look up ESG ratings is out on Yahoo Finance. There is a sustainability tab that you can click on, and that is data provided by Sustainalytics. And then I did want to mention that because there's such a push from the general public around sustainability, there is also a push to make companies report their sustainable practices via their accounting reporting. So there is an organization named SASB, not to be confused with FASB, but similar, the Sustainability Accounting Board. And they are working to standardize the disclosure requirements for companies so that the general public can get their hands on the information more easily. So I think that, we're coming along. These are all positive developments, and I think we're headed towards standardization and transparency, and we still have a little ways to go yet.
Well, it's wonderful to be at the forefront of such an important trend. And so I'm so glad that you could join us here today, Tammy, talking about this topic, which I find fascinating and hopeful. Thank you for helping us better understand what sustainability investing truly is, and for the excellent tips to help us choose experienced financial advisors and reputable companies to invest in. So why don't you tell us or show us, I think we have a slide on how folks can get a hold of you. And I will also mention that you can be found on divorcetownusa.com. You are one of our valued members there. And so you can always find Tammy at divorcetownusa.com by doing a search for investment advisors. But here is your information here. And I love that picture. That's beautiful.
Yes, so I am a comprehensive financial planner. I do specialize in working with women. I work with families and single men as well. I do like to talk to my clients about sustainable investing, and I can be reached probably easiest through email at tammy@foryourfuture.net. I also am out on LinkedIn and do respond to LinkedIn messages. So feel free to reach out and connect that way. My practice is virtual. So even if you're not located in the Atlanta area, I am happy to connect with folks all across the country.
That is great. Well, thank you again, Tammy, for being here today. And before we go, we want to share some important information and resources to help you avoid common, costly, and sometimes permanent mistakes of divorce. So let's take a look at that now. Hang on, folks. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. There we go. All right. So this is what can be found at Divorcetown USA. It is a Divorcetown roadmap that I created for you to help you find hope and help navigating your divorce. Because this is not a time to do it alone or be alone, folks. You want to make sure that you have support, and we want to keep you on one of these roadways, or maybe a few combined roadways, but we definitely want to help you stay away from Duke It Out Drive and Bigger Bucks Boulevard, because that's what typical litigation is. So this comes with an ebook that will help explain all of these topics and will help you to have a better journey through Divorcetown, saving you time, money, and your sanity, as well as the fabric of your family. And that is why I created this resource. So I hope that you will avail yourself to that. We also have at my primary website, Divorce Money Matters, you can download your free divorce financial fitness kit. And this kit will help you get better organized so you can take care of your money matters during your divorce. It includes a working Excel spreadsheet that's going to have all the documents you need to gather when you're going through divorce, and you can check them right off within the spreadsheet, and a list of must-ask questions when you're looking to hire an attorney so that you end up with the right attorney, an effective attorney for your situation, as well as an ebook, again, to help guide you through this. And I hope that you'll avail yourself to that. Divorcetown USA, we also sponsor a virtual divorce help and hope support group through meetup.com. And this meets once or twice a month via Zoom. Meeting dates and times are always posted on Divorcetown USA in the events section. And these group meetings are always free and moderated by professionals from Divorcetown like Tammy. So we hope that you'll join us there. And next week, we're going to continue the theme of being green, but we're going to switch from sustainable investing to spending. I am thrilled to be interviewing my daughter, Brittany Decker, who has over a decade of experience within the nonprofit and public policy sectors, international community engagement, and sustainable business consulting. Brittany has a fascinating tale, having traveled all over the world and seen firsthand what some of these choices that we make do for and sometimes against folks. We may not even be aware of what we're investing in and what it's doing to people. So she's going to bring to us more information about what we started today. And we're going to continue on this topic and learn more about B Corp and all kinds of other things, because this is what she does now, She consults with large corporations all over the country, bringing them ways that they can become more sustainable and LEED certified, B Corp certified. She's got the answers to that stuff, folks. So thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week.